All right, good afternoon, Terps. Oh, that was weak. I'm gonna try that again. Good afternoon, Terps. So my name is Jeff Williams. I am the Managing Director and Chief Outreach Officer at the Alumni Association. Thank you again for joining us for our third annual Entrepreneurial Conference. This program launched on March 7th, 2020, just days before the world shut down for the COVID-19 pandemic. It is so great to be here today, back in person, for what is our third and sure to be best Entrepreneur Conference. Since our inaugural conference, we have worked tirelessly to support our Terp entrepreneurs. We've hosted online and in-person events to help you connect with venture capitalists and business advisors. We've created the Innovation Gateway, an online platform to connect you with campus and regional resources. And we've profiled countless Terp businesses in our newsletter and on social media to promote a culture of Terps hiring Terps. I'm happy to say that the Entrepreneur Network is stronger than ever. All of you are here today are a testament to the outstanding community of innovators and business leaders that we have in our community. Today, we are thrilled to have one of our most notable entrepreneurs joining us as the keynote speaker, along with our outstanding president. It is my pleasure to introduce to you University of Maryland President, Dr. Darryll J. Pines, and Terp alum, Kevin Plank.
I'll do that. Yes, ma'am. Well, who wants to be an entrepreneur? Who wants to? All right. Well, thank you, Jeff, for those kind introductions of both Kevin and I, and welcome everyone to the University of Maryland Entrepreneur Conference, an opportunity for you to share insights with each other, learn about how to go to the next level, and hopefully just stay connected with your Terp Nation family. It's always an honor for me to be in the room with so many of you, Terrapins, and innovative and creative people as well, who set the standard for the Terrapin community. It's because of people like you that groundbreaking discoveries happen, and we bring them to business success. So I'm just as excited as most of you to be here today. Let me tell you what's been happening at our university, thanks to a lot of folks in the academic enterprise, from the business school to the Do Good Institute, to the MIPS program, and to the Academy for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Over the last, I would say, 30 years, the University of Maryland has been working on its innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. And because of the work of so many people like Dean Chang and many others across the University of Maryland, the Princeton Review has ranked us over the last 7 consecutive years in the top 10. Did I say in the top 10? I said in the top 10. And just to let you know, before Dean Chang took his job 20 years ago, we were not even in the top 25. But thanks to his commitment and his ability to go around campus and really distill education to students, I think it's over now, 15,000 students on campus get engaged in curriculum related to innovation and entrepreneurship. And in addition, your university has grown in its research profile, which often leads to technology entrepreneurship in the future. And the University of Maryland is ranked number 3 in all funding from NASA, and the University of Maryland, by the National Science Foundation Higher Education Research Rankings, ranks in the top 10 of all public universities in its research expenditures. So we need a round of applause for that as well. So, when our society faces the challenges that you can tell that we're facing, challenges such as climate change, challenges such as healthcare, challenges such as the pandemic, and yes, challenges such as gun violence. Well, we come to you, Terp alums and entrepreneurs and creative people, to find the innovative solutions to solve the grand challenges of our time. That is why I'm excited to be here to have this fireside chat with one of our most distinguished and most well-known alums, Kevin Plank. Yes. Kevin is a founder Executive Chairman and Brand Chief of Under Armour, a company that has revolutionized sports, that's right, sports apparel. If you keep clapping, we're never going to get through all of this. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. We appreciate you. I hope you all leave today's conversation with some additional wisdom and inspiration to fuel your own entrepreneurship journey, as Kevin has done. To help me introduce Kevin today, I'd like to first play a brief video that encapsulates the Under Armour story and should serve as the perfect tone setter for our conversation today. Please roll the video.
We are a movement, a purpose. We exist to empower those who strive for more. Over 25 years, we've grown into a rally cry for athletes worldwide across all sports. But we're not gonna sit idle, pat ourselves on the back, hoist our trophies, because for us, our 25 years mean nothing unless they are 25 more.
It's about us versus them.
They invented the compression apparel
One
market.
of the fastest growing companies in it.
The idea for the product actually happened like 2 years ago.
We grew our roots in Baltimore.
Baltimore is an amazing city. That attitude of that city, it is Under Armour. Baltimore's home.
Man, you know we love this city. We got grit. We're dripping in it.
It's one of the great entrepreneurial
A
stories.
phenomenon.
The company is expanding its brand.
The OG always takes hits. But we protect it and we grew.
It's us versus them.
Because our drive to make athletes better is what fueled us.
First handshake they had with the Under Armour brand will be a digital handshake.
Completely revolutionary.
Deal in the history of collegiate sport.
And it wasn't just at home. It was a march across the planet. A movement.
Under Armour, a rising star globally.
Global brand. Internationally, you're killing it.
We celebrate our victories. But you know what? We've got some scars from our journey too.
She is down. Tom Brady's on the downside of his career.
But the greats, they get back up, reflect on defeat, change their angle, reset the clock, and draw up a new play.
Make no mistake, Under Armour is a growth company.
We love everything that we're getting ready to get into.
Everything's about getting better.
Announcing the launch of the Curry brand.
We empower those who strive for more. And that goes beyond the field.
I'm ready to use my voice to speak up in this moment in history.
Under Armour is working to help fight the coronavirus.
Finale plays for Baltimore.
You sparked a nice big movement. We get to represent it together.
We are building a platform that changes lives.
Here's Brady's pass for the touchdown.
Our story is the stuff of legends, and it's only just begun.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you, class of 1996, Smith School alum, Mr. Kevin Plank. So let's get right at it. When did you first know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I'm working on entrepreneur. It's like part of the gateway to get into this club, I think. I'd say there's lines is that are entrepreneurs born or made. I think there's entrepreneur in everyone, so I think we're all born with it. It's a matter of us being able to unleash it. It's a matter of us being able to trust in it, to find it. I was fortunate is that our circumstances define our journey in many situations, but it's also up to us to be able to alter or change or create our circumstances that want to fit the journey that we want to have. You know, I grew up here locally in Kensington, Maryland. You know, youngest of 5 boys, went to St. John's College High School. I had to go to a prep school before I ended up coming to the University of Maryland. But my whole life, I was always, I always had that drive, and it was, you know, maybe trying to impress your parents, maybe it's because, you're the fifth one, it means your mom had you late and you weren't exactly planned at that point. So you got to prove something is that they made a good decision. Trying to showcase that was something of wanting to, look at me. I don't want to sit at the little kid table. I want to be at the big table. And so you're trying to find ways to make your mark. And there's lots of ways for you to be able to define that satisfaction. And for me, it wasn't forced. It was always natural. I enjoyed, I was the kid that would get up on snow days and grab a shovel and head out and go shovel snow. I was a kid that I had my own lawn cutting business from the time I was in 5th grade, and riding my BMX bike and dragging a little Briggs and Stratton motorcycle or a lawnmower behind me to get to the 7 lawns that I had. It was the lemonade stands that we'd set up out on the corner. And I encourage, it's one message I ever give in meetings like this. And first of all, congratulations, President Pines and the University of Maryland, the entire system for being able to put together the leadership that we have in entrepreneurship, and being able to draw so many people here is such a massive deal. And for us to encourage this. And so my bit that I will give is that, do yourselves a favor, do our children a favor. As you're driving down the street and you drive by, a little kid who's selling lemonade or something else on the side of the road, take 5 minutes and stop and buy a cup of lemonade and help encourage them in their journey too. It's the greatest gift that we have. Hopefully it's our greatest export, but this isn't an American exclusive thing, and we compete on a global stage as we see the world get smaller and smaller every day. And so let's make sure we maintain our entrepreneurial edge here at home, and especially here in Maryland. But I went from selling T-shirts at concerts to little bracelets at Grateful Dead shows, and there's a picture of myself and my brother Scott behind me. We were a little incognito because people said, as a football player and trying to sell T-shirts in a parking lot of a concert, they thought I looked like a cop. So I'd grow my beard out and try to put some scruff on. But getting to that place where I love selling. I love the journey. I love being out there and showing. And to the entrepreneurs, I always get that, what's your elevator pitch advice that you'd have for us? And the best thing I could say is find out if your product can sell. And that's one thing, is that if you're an entrepreneur, great. There are more entrepreneurs sitting in a basement, an attic, after hours, working on their side hustle, waiting for that right opportunity. And I was just talking to a young entrepreneur over here, and I said, the best thing about starting young is that when you're in your 30s and you have a spouse and a mortgage and these other things, it's like your risk level is up here. And when you're starting, it's like, how much can you lose? You can always recover, and that may seem like it's difficult, but to know it's a great opportunity when you're a young person to be able to take that shot. There's no bad time to take it. Your risk profile is just a little bit different, so you're willing to bet a few more chips maybe to find success, and gives you a little better likelihood of finding success as well. And so I think I've had it since being a very young age, and always looked for the opportunity. And there was nothing perfect that said, I had 10 ideas of companies I wanted to start. The one thing that I knew is that I didn't want to take the job with State Farm Insurance. And it was the only job offer I had. I'll give you a funny story. My mother is, she's just under, I won't tell her age. She's a beautiful woman who had me when she was 40, and I'm turning 50 this year. So I won't say that. So, but I'll never forget, coming out of school, I knew I wasn't going to play in the NFL. It wasn't an option for me. And being a student athlete was something, I love the journey. I love being on a team. I love being a part of something and having a mission bigger than us. I love walking out into the arena, and starting every season and thinking, we can win the national championship this year. We're gonna go undefeated, and if we go on our run, we can do anything. And just having that opportunity was so important to me. And then afterwards, it's like I was pretty clear and self-aware on how good I was, how good I wasn't, and getting on the field was a big deal for me. So the NFL wasn't something I thought about. And I'll never forget it. So you're transitioning from college and dorm to my moving home, and I ended up moving into this row house that my grandmother had in Washington, D.C. And as I was doing that, the only phone number I had to give people, and because I was recruited to take a job, doing insurance, and it's a fine field, but it just wasn't for me. And I'll never forget, it was kind of exciting though, because having somebody say, hey, Kevin, we're willing to start you out and pay you $40,000 a year. That was a lot of money in 1996 when I was graduating from school. And I'll never forget, I went back to my mom's house one day and I'm sitting at her desk and I look and there's like a notepad and it says like, Tuesday, May 15th, and this is like June 3rd. And it said, call so-and-so from State Farm and tell them that, and he called, he wants to offer you a job or something like that. I remember ripping the thing off and walking out to my mother. I go, Mom, I got this message. You didn't tell me about this message. I just found this on your desk. This thing's 2 weeks old. Why didn't you tell me? And she just goes, and I was already committed. She goes, I knew you never were going to do that job. You want to be an entrepreneur, right? And it was sort of that, I guess, clear to everybody else in my life as well. And she was right. I had no interest in doing that job. But
I'm laughing because when I was 18, I took a State Farm job. So I was on the other side of that window of opportunity.
I'm insured by State Farm today, so I want to be clear. It's like there's a full circle.
But it was a summer
roll.
job. It was a summer job.
Everybody's got a roll, yeah. How was it?
It was great. But I knew I didn't want to do it either after I took it.
Yeah.
So Kevin, I think many of the Terps who are in the audience really want to know this part. How did your University of Maryland education help you in this incredible journey to create Under Armour? Are there some stories you could share with us that kind of ties back to your experiences at College Park that led you to do certain things at Under Armour?
I think the EQ aspect of building a business, it's so important for anything that you do, being an entrepreneur, being in business, of just understanding humans, interaction, how people work with one another. And I think I learned that from a very early age. Probably one of the best things I learned at the University of Maryland was what's it like interacting in a large system? Once you're a part of this big bureaucracy, is that there's ways that you know that you're going to need to work with that throughout life. And so there's lessons in everything. And as I have my own kids, my daughter 15, my son 18, coming up and thinking about the lessons that I can share with them, without trying to show them just this is Dad's way, but here's lessons you'll need for life. And it's going to an orientation and not just sitting in the crowd, but it's, thinking about, I'm going to stay behind and I am going to go shake the person's hand. I'm not asking for everybody to come shake our hand afterwards, but it is those little things of just making that connection and just saying, hi, and my mother taught me that. She was from a list of strong women, from her mom, whose husband died when she was a single mom of 3 daughters below 12, 4, and 2 years old, and finding a way to be able to build herself up. To my mother, who was the mayor of my town, she's an independent person who's worked at the State Department, worked from 82 to 92 throughout government, and just been a really strong, powerful person. But just seeing what that independence is like and how important it is to be able to have that independence in a control-like way of finding strength. But my focus, my goal has always been on using the lessons of people, of being one of those to understand humanity. And that's what draws me to a consumer-facing brand. It's understanding the needs of consumers. And at Under Armour, we say our vision is to provide you with performance solutions that you never knew you needed. And once you try them, couldn't imagine living without. And part of that translates into my daily life in terms of we want to give people things, and the best merchants in the world are the ones that are dictating cool, not predicting cool. And so we want to be strong and on our front foot, but we also want to make sure that we're listening generously to figure out what those things are, what those lessons are.
So I want to take you back to how you started Under Armour. How did you establish the mission and the vision that you just spoke about? How did you do that from the ground level? And then the next question is, how did you engage investors and then think about scaling the growth of Under Armour? So first, how did you establish the mission and the vision for Under Armour? How did you establish that and do the strategy? I think we got a mic for you.
Oh,
sorry about that.
Thank you, that's better. I think we're all, look, we're born into our circumstances, and then we're all responsible for being defining where we're going. We're all the piece of clay, and it's our job to mold that clay and to extract the best that we can, to make the most beautiful piece of art that we can from that block of clay that we have. I feel like I've got skills, but I've got a lot of things that I don't have, so it's working number one, working with what I have. You know, and I think finding the ability to define, Under Armour was meant to be this company that was supposed to bring innovation. I think everybody plays a role. There's like, you have, you know, high, mid, low from terms of whether it's the car industry, whether it's the apparel industry, and everybody plays a role. And we've had times where we've played, you know, absolutely front of mind, or in consumer it's hard because they're constantly changing in the race of who's in first, who's in second, and you're measuring yourself that way. But like the best brands, kind of like the best products, I always feel that they build themselves. You know, when you start with the concept, you start, number one, by listening generously and understanding what you're trying to solve for. Of our job is we say at Under Armour, our mission is to make you better. You know, and in making you better, that idea is giving people the tools, the resources. It started with just a tight-fitting T-shirt that they wore on their body that wore snug and wouldn't hold moisture, wouldn't hold the moisture's weight, and it was simple, and it was fascinating because of the fabric that I found at a little place called Minnesota Fabrics right over here in Beltsville that fit this idea I had. I was looking for a material that felt like my compression shorts, and said, how come nobody's made that compression short like material for the upper body? And there was really no good answer or explanation as to why. And so I simply, you know, took that idea, went over there, spent $30 on some fabric, took it to a local tailor around the quarter, brought him a tight little white T-shirt that, you know, a Hanes T-shirt that fit the idea I had. I said, sir, can you make me as many T-shirts out of this stretchy synthetic material that look like this shape and design? You know, 7 prototypes. I think he charged me $350. And I was like, I'm never going to make a profit doing it this way. But, you know, I took it back here to Maryland. I graduated in the fall of '95. It was my last year playing. The spring of '96 is when I was graduating. Gave it to some guys in the team. And they tried it, they liked it, and it worked. And that very simple problem, because as an athlete, I truly hated the way my cotton T-shirt felt. It would drive me nuts. And I'd go out for warm-ups of a game, and I'd come back in and change out my T-shirt. I'd go out after the first half, we'd go into the halftime, and you'd spend, you know, the team would spend 5-10 minutes pulling shoulder pads off the equipment guys, swapping out T-shirts just to get them dry shirts, and thinking this is crazy. And how come nobody has a better alternative? And there was one, you know, and that insight, you know, that ability to look and talk to the consumer, to listen to the consumer and what they're looking for, and whatever's relatable to you. I love sports, so I was lucky to be able to have an insight that matched my passion, that I could then apply into a job, more importantly, a calling or a mission that's allowed me to chase and build something, you know, over time, and every year getting better and better. And again, to be clear, this is no straight line up. Trees do not grow to the sky. We'll all feel that, where you'll move forward, and you'll take steps back, and you'll move forward, and you'll adjust, and you'll learn. And there's nothing that I could sit here and encapsulate the first 5 years at Under Armour with, oh yeah, that was easy. I'm just telling you, that was like all-nighters. Yep. You know, it was working on, and things where it's just learning how to have someone come work for you, because, you know, when you're in it, you're thinking it's hard when someone works for you and they look at you and go, what do you want me to do? And you sort of have that, you know, you should do X, forget it, I'll just do it myself, right? The entrepreneurs here know what I'm talking about, because it takes like 3 times as long to explain to somebody what you want them to do, and they're not going to do it exactly as you want. So as you learn to become a leader, to accept that 80% is close enough, because if you can focus on that, then I can go focus on these other 3 things that need to get done. Because we all walk around like the little Dutch boy with our 2 thumbs out when you're building a business and thinking, I've only got 2 of them. I can only be in so many places at one time to be able to protect that dike from collapsing on us and the water, the levee breaking. So you just have to choose your battles. You have to pick your fights. You have to learn what this evolution of growth is like.
Yeah. This is really great advice. I remember when I came into the president's office, I had the same experience. Who could I trust to do what I wanted them to do? And I said, I'll just do it myself. And then I had to realize I can't do it myself. So that's really great advice. So now, from those first 5 years, how did you scale the business? And then how did you approach investors? I think this community would really want to hear some insights on that.
We've been able to find growth, but growth wasn't like a simple thing for us. So I'll tell you about our financing, which I actually have a great chart behind me that I built before. I had a rose business when I was on campus here. One of the things I did, selling t-shirts, selling bracelets at shows, mowing lawns, bartending, parking cars. I'll never forget when our football coach came on board, and we had a new coach my sophomore year, this guy Mark Duffner, and I was working for Unipark, parking cars at the president's house. And I just left the team meeting, and I'll never forget, my coach came over, and then the next thing you know, he pulls up to the front, and I'm like, hey, coach, how are you doing? Nice to see you. And he's like, you're parking cars here? It was like, I was hustling to do anything I could to find dollars. So my first business on campus, I had this thing called Cupid's Valentine Rose Delivery, sold 100 dozen flowers my freshman year, 250 dozen sophomore, 375 junior, and then 1,186 dozen flowers. You've heard me talk, you've heard me say this before. The only reason I remember 1186 as being the number is because we were trying to sell 1,500 dozen flowers and watching 314 dozen flowers of opportunity cost die on me. I realized, never want to work in live product again. And number two, make sure that everyone you work with can count to 12, which is like really simple advice that you come up with. So there's longer stories around that. I won't digress. But from that, I was able to turn a profit, and I made, $15,000, $16,000 in cash that I had from that. And I was able to establish credit, and I was able to start opening credit cards and building credit cards. So that first, amount was 15, 16, 17 grand. The next was the credit cards that I established. I blew through my credit card debt. And again, there's so many more financing avenues that are available today. So I am a sort of a moment in time from before. But I did want to maintain the equity myself. I wasn't interested in giving away a big swath of my company because I wanted to maintain the ability for deliberate control because I had a real vision of what I wanted to accomplish with the business, and I didn't want to be limited with that business. The friends and family, there were times that I was selling 1% of equity for $1,000. And it was, I'll sell you 10% in the company for $10,000. And it was the kind of thing where people would say, okay, 10,000, let me think about it. Okay, I'll do it. All right, great, I'm gonna need the 10,000, I'm gonna need it soon, Sure, yeah, I'll get you a check later this week. I don't think you understand. I'm gonna need it much sooner. All right, I'll get you a check today. No. I'm gonna need you to go to the bank with me right now, withdraw 10,000 from your account, and before 2 p.m., put 10,000 into my account, like that kind of soon. So fortunately, I didn't have to give too many of those away, but that was my mindset of I just needed the money. And like, $10,000 is a lot of money. And this isn't like, 100 years ago. This is like, 26 years ago. So I just want people to respect when you hear somebody say, I'm in my series A, B, or C, and I'm raising $1 million or $3 million. Losing money is not good. Like, and it is, you feel people like, fail fast, fail often. I love the George Patton line of like, you let the other guy or gal, let them fail for their business. You go win for your business, like let's figure out how to have that kind of mentality of winning. But it's a lot of money, and having a way to find of getting in the black and making sure that you're driving that profit, it creates a culture as well, of a culture of not just success, but of winning, of doing the right thing, of knowing that if you weren't there, the business would survive by itself. And those are the kind of things that you're not relying on anyone else's check. But we went from there to, at one point we did factoring. Factoring is when I go and I sell a customer $10,000 worth of goods. They offer just an 8% commission to get the money, but I can ship the goods, and instead of if I'm on net 30 or net 60 with a payment service, I can go right to them and they'll pay me less than 7%. Now it sounds relatively cheap or inexpensive at 7%, but then you compound that out over 12 months, it's like a 30% interest that you're paying, or 35% interest. Then we got sub-debt. The sub-debt we had was first we had the SBA loan, $250,000, then sub-debt. Sub-debt, we took $3 million of sub-debt, and we were paying 27.5% IRR. Like, that's like Discover card kind of rates. But you know what? We just needed the money. And at the time, I believed that the equity in the company was more valuable than the cash. We just needed to get on the front end of the cash cycle. Because in a long lead time business like ours, ordering fabrics, it's like a 60 to 90 day process. bringing them in, then having to manufacture, then ship it to an institutional customer or someone else if it's not direct business. You've got net 30, net 60, they're paying in 90 days. So just getting on the front side of that cash cycle was very, very difficult. And then we did the second tranche of 24%, and then ultimately we ended up, we brought in a private equity partner for 12 or 13 million bucks in 2003, and then we ended up going public in 2005. So that road from starting a business in 1996 to getting public in 2005 was a long road. And the trajectory of growth, though, is that's one thing that we were able to create was we got the flywheel going to where our business was moving quickly. Under Armour started our first year in business, we did 17,000 in revenue, then 100,000, 400,000. That was all out of grandma's basement in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Then I moved the business up to Baltimore. We did $1.3 million, had a real office. I could tell people that, to come to the office, they didn't have to come to a residential neighborhood anymore, making excuses for that. Then $5 million, so our first 5 years in business from 0 to 5 million. Our next 5 years in business from 5 to just under 300 million in revenue. That was the year we went public in 2005. The next 5 years from just under 300 to crossing $1 billion. The next 5 years roughly from $1 billion to crossing that $5 billion milestone. And then getting there and becoming a big company, that's been a completely new world of, it's one thing to be here. Now figuring out how to grow on that kind of scale, when you're thinking for us to have meaningful growth for the company or for the street or anybody else, it's double digits at least. You're talking about growing $500 million to $1 billion a year. And frankly, we lived that world from 14, 15, and 16. 2013, we were a $2.3 billion company. The next 3 years, we grew $756 million, $878, $873 million. And yes, when you're the entrepreneur, you remember every number like it's yesterday. And our people, we went from 6,000 people to 14,000 people. And so that kind of growth can be traumatic at a level, which is one of the things that led us into, we had this great run from 10 to 16, and then all of a sudden, we got punched and hit because in our industry, there were only two companies, two brands globally that had revenues larger than 5 billion in revenue. And that was Nike and Adidas. And so breaking through that, I was like, why is New Balance? They've been around for 40 years. Why have they never got, why is ASICS or Mizuno and all these companies that you've heard of? But it's just, it's really challenging getting through that ceiling that exists there in the world. And so I thought we could, punch through it and drive through it. But then there's a lot of things that happen when you do become a big company. But there's a lot of steps between now and there, and it's a journey. It's a journey.
It's amazing, amazing story. So over the last 26 years of Under Armour, in your mind, what has been the biggest change that you've seen? I know you shared some anecdotal stories, but what do you think has been the biggest change you have seen in the business over the last 26 years?
It's got to be the digitization of the business. I think like any of us, the speed at which our business works. Contemplating being a wholesale customer, meaning that we'll sell to Dick's Sporting Goods or customers, Foot Locker and companies like that, versus being exclusively direct. And exclusively direct was pretty limiting because it just said you can be direct as many stores as you can open, which is very capital intensive. It's difficult with store staff. You're talking about 100% turnover in most retail stores. So maintaining your brand presence. The internet, e-commerce has changed everything. The digitization of not only the way that we interact, but how we're relating with you with social media. So interesting meeting young people, and they just say things like, so when you started your company, so were you like, what kind of an influencer were you when you were doing that? I'm like, influencer? I wasn't an influencer. Like, I was just the person behind a logo that was selling product. And they're like, well, how did you start a business if you didn't have influencers? Like, how does it actually work? And like, life before that was a much different putt. It was some of the branding that you've seen from us before. It was making commercials where everyone was fixed because they didn't have this third screen that was a part of their lives. Everything was, I'm going to watch, TV. I'm going to watch The Simpsons. I'm going to watch The Cosbys. I'm going to watch like primetime. So it's making commercials like Protect This House and showing it on television and building your fame that way. It's running ads in Sports Illustrated or ESPN the magazine or Men's Journal or Women's Health and like all these different things to reach the consumer. So the way that we talk to the consumer is so differently today. There's no such thing as a 60-second commercial. In general, it's figuring out how we can do the snackable bites in 7 seconds that will, intrigue you on an Instagram story or in Snapchat or talking to kids, especially our demographic, which is effectively 16 to 24, that we want to be compelling to that team sport athlete. We want to be important to them. So the way that we communicate and talk to our consumer has so drastically changed over the last, 25, 26 years and it's going to continue to change. This is constant, this is metabolism. This is just constantly breaking down, constantly changing, constantly finding a better way to articulate and talk to someone. And, we all remain students, and we remain humble and learning and listening every single day.
So how many of you remember "We Must Protect This House" video? You probably can remember the sort of click-clack. Do you remember that? See, that's how famous it was. People still remember it. It's amazing. I remember it. I used to say it all the time. But it connected you to Under Armour. So I'm also intrigued about how you guys are doing the following. How are you staying ahead of the technology curve? Because the pace of technology is increasing rapidly all the time in your industry and just broadly in the world. How do you stay ahead of it all?
Yeah, I think it's listening. Mm-hmm. Listening is really important, listening to our consumer. And it's not just listening about the product anymore, it is listening that there's not one or two or three mediums that we communicate with consumers. There's so many different ways. And it's all the traditional media that's always been there. So it's television and it's radio and but it's the addition of the internet, it's the addition of social media and all these things, the way that they come together. I mean, we have a job to do to make sure that, as I said earlier, the best merchants, the best companies in the world, it's old like Steve Jobs, Mickey Drexler, like this is the merchant prince who used to be the guy that ran Gap and J. Crew, and interesting guy, but it's this line that, you can go out and you can try to predict trends and colors and things, or when you become a brand and you become substantial, you begin to get that following, and we talk about listening, but having that following we say putting the consumer at the center of everything we do. And that means like understanding who our consumer is, listening to our consumers, but it's also helping them. Data is critical, and it's changed the way, and we were talking about this as a board recently. The way that we process data, as we said, that data is the new oil. The way that we're processing data, what we're doing with data to help formulate decisions it's the Amazon effect, is that they can run a model and they can run an algorithm that basically helps them run 80 to 85% of their business. But if you're looking for the data to just be able to give you every answer, that's not data informed, I think is the right thing, but data completely reliant is, I think, a bit irresponsible. And so being a brand, our job is giving consumers those products they never knew they needed and can't imagine living without. It's us coming up and developing a product and not going, I hope the consumer likes it. But to truly be able to, number one, it's us having listened and being smart and educated and humble enough to say, does this product worthy of us stepping out for it? And then it's about taking a chance. And then it's about having the conviction to say that we're willing to stake our reputation, that this is something we believe the consumer will enjoy so much, we'd like to invite you to come purchase that with us. Because I think today what's different is, as much as I'm saying dictating what's cool, dictating the tempo of what's cool, telling the consumer what's cool, it also has to be an invitation. It has to be a two-way street. It has to be the ability for them to want to join your movement. We're not going to win by just coming and barking things at consumers, but we want to inspire you. We want to tell you that when you participate, like that, the original Under Armour shirt, I've got a famous story I tell often because I think it's the most encapsulating descriptor of our brand. And this is, it's one time I was in a sporting goods store and I'm watching people shop, and this is what we do, and it's 4-ish o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm standing there and it's kind of creepy. The guys in the corner, they're just staring, watching what people shop. So this mom walks in with, 2 little kids, 10 and 12 years old. And, the 12-year-old's like, mom, like, look, Under Armour. And the mom's like holding hands. She's like, nah, we didn't come here to get that stuff. It's expensive. Don't go over there. I'm watching the kid and I'm like, oh, Go on. It's okay. His mom gets distracted. She's playing around with the one little kid, and then to the other one, I see him sneak over, and he's still got like his collared school shirt on, and he grabs an Under Armour compression shirt off the rack, and he throws his hands through and pulls his head through. And then he walks out in the middle of the aisle, and he just holds his arms up, and he goes, "Hey, Mom, look at me. I'm wearing Under Armour. I can do anything." You know? And you want to know what brand is? You know, brand is like that kid believes that, he could, stand in front of a speeding train. He's got a superpower to him, which isn't just meant to be an athlete that keeps you a little bit lighter and lets you maybe run a little faster or jump a little higher, but it's also the kid where that brand translates from just the performance aspects to the way that helps us mentally, of understanding like how important our brands are. When I know the security, I've got an Apple phone and it's gonna deliver it, it'll be there, but I'm wearing Under Armour today, and that is something that hopefully we can expand our role from just being a confident product or apparel or footwear manufacturer. The world doesn't need another capable apparel and footwear manufacturers. But when you put on your shoe, we need to help you dream a little bit. Because when that little boy or that little girl is whether they are working out or thinking, I'm gonna try out for the team because I got an edge, I'm wearing Under Armour, and there's this superpower that's built in it. It's our job to make sure there is a superpower. It's our job to also make sure that they understand and believe what that can do for them. But even if it's just that little kid standing there with a lunch tray in their hand, first day at school, and just wondering, where am I gonna, oh geez, I gotta sit, which table should I sit at? You know that feeling. I don't know, I'm okay. Today I'm wearing Under Armour. Like I'm gonna be okay. Like if we can give that to our consumers in any instance, like that's when we've really won. And it's not just some marketing story that you're making up, but it really is. When it starts affecting us, when that starts affecting our being, when that starts affecting our belief, that's where brands that are meant to inspire, that's where we want Under Armour to be. Oh, their shoe's better than their shoe. I like the LeBron shoe more than the Steph Curry shoe. Number one, you're wrong. Right? So that's not subjective. But we should be able to have fun with that, and we should but we're in that game. And that's what I always wanted to do. It's the reason I walked on at Maryland versus going to play someplace else, is I wanted to be on the big stage. And I love competing with against the biggest and the best. And that's a tall order, because be careful what you wish for, because those suckers are good, These other guys have been around for a long time because they're really good at what they do. But you know what? We're pretty good too. And we're resilient, we're tough, and we're in this fight. So we're gonna win. We're gonna win.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that I have on my Maryland socks, and I feel a little empowered as president. It's not Under Armour, but it's the best I could do. So we all just gone through an incredible time period of the pandemic, and obviously we're still somewhat at the tail end of it, and we'll probably be in it forever. And it affected a number of industries. The airline industry almost collapsed, right? The hotel industry almost collapsed throughout the world and the United States. But I'm really wondering, what has Under Armour and you personally learned from the experiences of the last 2 years in the pandemic, and how has it reimagined where you're heading with Under Armour?
I think, you kind of want to give that, it's like when you ask somebody how they're doing. President Pines, Darryll, it's great to see you. How are you? Good. Kevin, how are you doing? Doing well. Nice to see you. Or, you know what? My lower back's bothering me. I'm dealing with my mom. I've got issues. Like the things that we all carry, because every one of us has a backpack. Yeah. Every one of us has a backpack. And boy, those backpacks are heavier for some than others. But understanding and having that empathy of what people are carrying with them every single day, I think it's critical as leadership. I think it's critical as business. I think for us to have empathy for our consumer and what they've been through. And I think the period from, let's be clear, from Me Too to social justice to pandemic, we've just had so much time and attention on dealing with ourselves. Almost not even the physical, but how are we making ourselves better? And when you're quarantined at home and you're with your spouses and you're dealing with life and there's nowhere to really hide from it. And on the other foot, there is places where you're not having to come to work every day and you're getting to find out, am I doing what I really want to do? And we're seeing the great resignation come to life. And people deciding, like, is what I'm doing fulfilling? Which is why what you hear me constantly talking about today is that our job is, we want to make the best apparel and footwear in the world that has innovation the world's never seen before. But our true job, and hopefully that'll come through with everything we do, it is to inspire you. Because that may sound simple at a level. Oh, that's just marketing guff. That's just this. But if we can run a commercial or have social media or have an athlete and communicate their story, their journey of where they came from nothing to get here, and demonstrate for us things as fundamental as, like, it can happen to you. It could be anybody. The American dream, however you want to characterize it. But those are the things that are the most harmful to me, is hearing how young people stop believing that it can be them. And it's one of the most important things I think that I hopefully represent, is that this isn't like rags to riches story, but I came from a house, I grew up in Kensington. I had a really good mom. I had a fine house. But it's my job to hopefully be able to increase my condition as best I could. And I think that's all of our jobs, to see, when you have children especially, you're thinking, how can I just make them easier, a little better, and help them elevate a little more than myself? And I feel that the pandemic has really, it's encouraged, it's demonstrated the need for such a great sense of empathy, that it needs to be maintained in your business, in our school, in our approach, and what we're doing. And that's when I talk to our team, it is about inspiring versus just telling you. It's not, and for us, we're not just a widget company. We don't make bolts, and we're a brand. And what I want to tell our company, and hopefully everybody, if I can communicate to you, like, when you build your company, it's important, and probably the branding, depending on what you do, may be one of the last things you consider. But when you're a brand, it's like you're working for a higher purpose. And we say under our purpose is to empower those who strive for more. So we have our vision, our mission, our values, stand for equality, love athletes, celebrate the wins. These things like loving where we're from and protecting the environment, like the values of what and who we are, of the importance of articulating these messages to ourselves, and understanding that, like, as a brand, like, we want people to participate in our company. We don't want to tell you. We don't want you showing up for work. We don't want you just thinking about life through the lens of what the financial metrics are. The financial metrics are really important because that's our scoreboard. But if we look at it things through the lens of how we value our brand, our contributions to the brand, and by brand, I mean inspiration. I mean inspiring over telling. I mean inviting over dictation sometimes. I mean really being a partner to helping people unlock that piece of clay that we all are and paint the most beautiful canvas that we can with the resources that we have.
I just want you guys to know that, Kevin Plank and Under Armour actually lives by the words that you just heard from him, and I want to share with you a story. I'm going off script to share this story because I think it's important for you Terps to know. In November of 2020, and you and I hadn't even talked, but you just called me out of the blue and said, hey, Darryll, I want to do something for social justice. And I hope you're going to be supportive of the idea I'm about to share with you, because I think it's the right thing to do. This is November of 2020. 4 or 5 months after the George Floyd murder. He calls me up and he says, I want to do something where it has a great impact and really is a message and a symbol of inclusion to the whole world, and also social justice. And his idea was to name the addition to Cole Fieldhouse after 2 signature African-American athletes who were the first to integrate basketball and football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And that is why Jones Hill House is named Jones Hill House, is because of Kevin Plank. So give him a round of applause for that leadership. His words are not hollow. His words are not hollow. So thank you for that wonderful gift you gave. And there's the image there. I had no idea you could cue that image up. That's amazing. So that's really fantastic. But that's exactly when we were at the dedication ceremony at Jones Hill House, and you see the two gentlemen in the middle who it's named after, and Kevin right next to them. So what a wonderful, wonderful honor for them. So Kevin, one question that we also have for you is that you're always at the top, and we're always asking you for advice, and this is what this almost fireside chat is all about. You're providing advice to these entrepreneurs, but where do you go for guidance? Who do you go as mentors to help you think about complicated issues?
I'm fortunate that it's when you think about advice. My father passed away when I was 19, when I was a freshman here, at the end of my freshman year at Maryland. And that's, where someone goes, their father, their mother. And so my mother's always been a great, source of strength for me. But not having sort of that other aspect of the family unit, it definitely had an impact on me. And it made me, frankly, much more self-reliant. And I've had friends that have, had ideas or concepts, and they've taken them and they just said, my dad, sort of talked me out of it, or my mom, my parents, because the closest thing I had to it when I was young, it was a girl I dated, their father, and I really looked at him like a mentor. And I'll never forget bringing him the idea for Under Armour and saying, I've got this company I'm going to go start, and I'm super excited, and here's the idea. It's the stretchy T-shirts. We're going to push them out there. And I'll never forget the reaction from him. And I was like, I wondered if you could be like a board member for me and help me with this company. And his reaction was, hey, kid, you're competing against really big competition. Forget it. You'll never make it. And I remember just kind of thinking, like, what? I had this, picture of you that you were and it proved to not be the case. And I remember just thinking, if you don't believe in me, then I'll go do it myself. And so I moved that mentorship. As you professionalize yourself in business, and I'm very fortunate to have some, super good friends, as well as good advice from another very special friend of understanding what that means. I've got a great board of directors as it relates to Under Armour. And I've had this opportunity where you hear things like, one of my directors, this guy, George Bodenheimer, former director of mine, he was the chairman of ESPN, but he'd say, choose your board and use your board. And if you're not using your board, why not? Who are you talking to then? This should be the close-knit community that we have. And then I also, if I give you something, asking about advice, this is something hopefully can play for everyone. But I have another dear friend of mine, very smart person. I won't give their name. But I invited them to my 40th birthday party. And at my 40th birthday, I ended up doing this big shindig, like an away weekend, sort of all expenses paid, 55 or 60 people from my life, plus their spouses, cars picking them up their houses, flying first class. We just had this great sort of 3-day celebration. And I'll never forget the advice that I received, because there's people that are in your life and not in your life, and these are friends from a couple from grade school, from high school, from my prep school I went to, from college, from Maryland, from work. And then it's like, wow, we didn't separate on night one. It was great seeing you. And then we had the second night. It was like, kind of remember why we don't hang out anymore. And then so you're like, get me out of here. What am I doing? But we had this 40th party, which I didn't think about it because part of me was almost this really weird sense of guilt. I've been blessed with all these things. I want to share this with the people in my life that have been important to me. And so we had this one, kind of a big party, and so there's 100 plus people there, and it was sort of happy birthday, Kevin. And I felt like I was doing it for them. And you realize that a lot of them probably thought I was doing it for me. And the smart, wise person, I remember calling over and saying, hey, we're having a great time. Come out on the dance floor and, come, why don't you come enjoy yourself with me? And he said, I've got, are you ready for your birthday gift, for your 40th birthday gift? And I said, well, what's your gift? My gift for you is a piece of advice. Okay, great. I'll sit down. Let me listen to your advice. And he leans into me, and I say this as I'm turning 50 in August. And he leans in and he says, my gift for you is a wish. And my wish for you is that you require many less people on your 50th birthday than you obviously have on your 40th birthday. And I think you have to be some of the wisdom or maybe above 50 to understand what that really means, is because at the end of the day, we can probably count most of our really reliable ones on one hand, and we'll have interactions and relationships, but understanding how we really get in and invest and cultivate those. And I encourage all of you to find and know and understand who they are. And this isn't some shell game of walking to the beach and seeing how many piles or this isn't a Halloween hunt to see how many pillowcases of candy we can get with collecting friends, because there are no strangers. We're friends we haven't met, and so we want to be open to that. But those are going to be able to impact us, help us, tell us when, you know what, you've pushed too far. You know what, hey, pull it back a little bit. The ones that really care, that value the person over just the relationship. A real friend will tell you the things that you don't want to hear. They'll have that courage to be able to bring that to you. And I hopefully, as I look to turn 50 years old now, is hopefully be able to build some of that wisdom, that it's just not the bull who's running down the hill, but someone that's really taking your time, to having the patience to tip the glasses to the edge of the nose, to become a little wiser. And really my passion in life now is moving to where I want to be able to inspire entrepreneurs. I'm proud of our story, and I know what it means for Under Armour as a fiduciary, for our public company, number one, our team, our shareholders, et cetera. But also, hopefully it can inspire someone else to know that guy was just here at Maryland, just like I'm here at Maryland. And, they've got a similar experience, and, why can't it be me? And that was my biggest question. People always ask, did you ever think, did you ever imagine, did you know it could happen? And what I say to them very clearly is, most importantly, I never believed it couldn't happen, right? The backpacks we carry of like, how are you doing? Oh my gosh, this is going on and that's going on, and I'm having trouble with the financing here and all kinds of things. But I never believed that it couldn't happen. And I encourage all of you to know that it is possible. And yes, there'll be things that will feel like forces against you. And some of them are very real, and a lot of them are probably perceived too. So do what you can as the entrepreneur to find your way to, find a way through. Just find a way through.
Okay, so we've come to the time in this session where we would like to take some questions from the audience. So raise your hand. There's a microphone that will come to you, I think. Where are the microphones? Okay. All right, so let's get that person first. And I want you to introduce yourself, say where you're from, what business you're with, and then ask your question.
Thank you. Ashok Kapoor, founder and CEO of Hawkeye MedTech. We have a telehealth platform that helps patients connect better with their healthcare providers. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us how you took a company as a solopreneur all the way to a multi-billion-dollar company publicly traded. Can you tell us how you had to do self-transformation to take a solopreneur company that you started in your row house all the way to a big company?
Entrepreneur, solopreneur. I'm digging it. One brick at a time. One day at a time. Really, and I remember, and I know how it feels being an entrepreneur. I was one of those entrepreneurs in 1998 of 2 or 3 years into the business, and just thinking to myself, like I'm reading Inc. magazine, and I'm looking at these companies. I'm like, who's this company? Why, they should be talking to us. Like, they need to, don't they know who we are and what we're doing? Like, we're out here. Like, we're of consequence. And it's the hardest part of being an entrepreneur. And you should have that. And that is probably a little bit of chip on your shoulder. And maybe that's being an entrepreneur. Maybe that's being a Terp. Because let's be clear, especially this room, we're talking like different areas. If I'm representing being an entrepreneur in some other place, like, there is part of this grit that is us. Part of it is Baltimore, part of it is College Park, and it's just like, we're just a little, we're
edgy.
Yeah, we're handsome. We're not really pretty. We're kind of, I don't know. I'm trying to find it, but we just got some stuff to us.
Terrapin grit is fine.
We've got some terrapin grit to it. I'm proud of that.
We are.
And that is what sort of has us pushing our way to the front of the line and trying to, to get there and doing it respectfully and doing it in a way which, when you see it from us, you know that we've earned it. You know that we've done the hard work in order to get there, because it is hard work. And you will have that feeling of like, they should, know about us. And I wish they were, telling our story, because I want people to hear it, because we're super, super proud of it. And it never happens fast enough. It just takes a while. And those are the things like, Inc. magazine, it's one of the lists you look at, fastest privately growing companies. And one of the things I always think was really cool, and I look back on some of our journey, but we made it to number 2 on that list one year. We became the second fastest privately held company in America. And the company was number 1 was like some bug zapper company that I haven't heard of them since. But it just goes to show, like, I want you to know how hard it is. And not saying, and I'm not trying to push you off from it, but don't put all that on yourself. Make sure you space it out. Give yourself time. And yeah, in the early years, you are going to have to work a little harder. And I'm not going to lie to you, is that pulling all-nighters was something I would do. Working all day, working through midnight, working through 3 o'clock, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and at 6 saying, I'm going to head upstairs at grandma's house, grab a shower real quick, and be right back down here at 6:30. That's a mindset. I'm not saying it's healthy, but it's what I did for a period of time. And there are these moments where it's like, I'm willing to give that, because I wouldn't be able to sleep, because I had so much work to do, and I had such a clear idea on the mission. So identify your mission, I think, is the most important thing. I'd also say focus is incredibly important. Keeping the main thing, not getting distracted. Again, this is sort of like borderline advice for entrepreneurs. Making sure that you have, if you want to raise capital, and this may be different, and I may be old school in this, but like, you probably have inventory. Go sell your inventory if you need money. It doesn't come with a board seat and a vote. It's like, just, if you need to raise capital, like, best advice I can give that elevator pitch is, as an entrepreneur, find out if the product that you have, the good or service, that if a consumer is willing to pull cold hard cash out of their pocket, out of their Venmo, and put that and give that to you in exchange for whatever it is that you're selling. But like, don't sit in that attic, don't sit in that basement, don't sit back in your haunches and wait. There is no golden sign. Just find out, can your product sell? And it's the best thing I could suggest for any entrepreneur. And when you find out it does, stay really focused on that before you start proliferating.
Yep, let's get the lady in the green.
Hi, President Pines.
Hi.
The question I want to ask, I guess as an entrepreneur and now sort of someone that's being in a position to make decisions about, where there's emergence, right, in the marketplace, where to make investment, and how other companies might evaluate those. One of the things that has been top of mind for me as someone who works a corporate job but also aspires to be a founder is there is a higher climb, I would say, for a lot of minority founders in getting access to capital. And so there are a lot of great founders. This is one of the communities that I treasure, being with other entrepreneurs and terps. But we as minority founders get less than 1% of. So my sister here has the stats, and so I think it's, for me, I think it's unfortunate that there's a lot of people who have great ideas, and the only barrier is really access to real capital infusion that'll let them kind of launch their ideas without giving the business away, right, and taking it from them. And so I was listening to your story, and I've heard a lot of founder stories. I'm a part of Tory Burch Foundation, and she does a similar thing, right, for women entrepreneurs. But there's a common thread in those stories. Like at one point, you had your family, friends, invest in your business. For a lot of minority founders, that's not necessarily an option, right? I can't go to my parents and say, give me $10,000. They don't have it. In most cases, I'm caring for some of the aging people in my family. And so I think success for us looks a little bit different because we make a lot of, personal sacrifices in our own careers. And so while I could take $250,000 and invest that in a business, I have a younger brother, I have, aging, relatives. So that's a harder decision to make. And it's not because of lack of desire, it's not because of lack of capability or mission or passion. It's just, I have other priorities that prevent me from making that climb. So just interested in your thoughts on just closing that gap. Like, how can, we as minority finers, or you as a person that has influence, right, in these circles, democratize innovation? Like, give us a chance to get our ideas out there and get them off the ground.
Thank you for your question. And I wish you the best in your business journey as well, because it is really hard, and it's hard for everyone, but it is harder for some. It's harder for some that don't have a relationship with a friend of an aunt who works at a bank, who knows the president, that can get you the lunch and is going to give you the chance. I was lucky to have that in my journey, is that I had a friend of my mom who was the president of the Abigail Adams National Bank, and she got me a meeting with her. And what I tell you to do is that it is hard. It's limiting, but there are programs out there that we can utilize. And I can say this almost agnostically from when I went to this woman, Kate Carr, who I feel gave me that first $250,000 SBA loan. The government has some magnificent programs. I actually, growing up in Kensington, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but one of those crazy people on TV that had the guy in the question mark suit, and it was like, the government's giving you money, like, here's how you do it, and you pay like $50 for this book, and it like tells you government programs where you can find free money. Like, I was looking at all of these things. The best I could come up with was the SBA, which the SBA, it guarantees 87% of the loan that the bank will make. So I was able to find a friend of my mom's, right, that she knew, like, friend of friend. It wasn't like a good friend that got me the lunch and say, let me pitch you my company, let me show you my business plan, and give me an opportunity. And it was the government backing 87%, protecting 87% of her downside to give me that chance. Now, this doesn't make it any easier to cross that, but what I'd say, because at Under Armour, our first core value is stand for equality. And we can all say it and preach it and anything else we want to say, but for us to really make things equitable, it's just going to take us time. So meanwhile, I want to arm you instead of giving you an empty answer with, let me tell you the things that we can do, is I think you may have the opportunity, if you can compel with that idea of being good enough, to go get that money from a bank who's knowing, I wouldn't give this kid a $250,000 loan, but you know what, I'm willing to risk 30 grand on 250,000 for X amount of bank fees, and the government's gonna be behind me, and it helps me with my lending, and the higher my SBA lending is, and the higher my minority SBA lending is. Like, there's lots of programs that we can work as well, that I wanna encourage you to look at some of those things, because without question, there are a pile of things that make it really hard. It's really hard. And some of it is the way the system is, and some of it is just not right, and things that we're trying to get right. But until then, it's not fair for me to put this on you, but I'm saying, I want you to look for some of those places where you can maybe find an edge. And that may sound too easy, and I will not have ever walked in your shoes, and I do only have my own experience. But I want you to know the empathy and the desire that I have to truly have an equitable place in this country, that we can think about America that way, that everybody does get a chance. And we're not there yet. But hopefully, I know there's a lot of people that are working towards it. And until we get there, I need you to be that much stronger, and I know that you are. I need you to be that much, like, we all need you to be that much stronger. And so I want to wish you the best in your journey, and hopefully that I'm doing that in myself as well, maybe able to touch all people from different walks, but also being able to do some of that investment myself, which speaks to the commitment that we have in like a city like Baltimore, which is building a sports brand in Baltimore is not sort of what people typically do, right. New York, Portland, Oregon, LA, but it's really important to me because I think it's part of the journey that we have to hopefully achieving a more equitable world.
One last question from here. And introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Kevin. My name is Edwin Jampa. I go by my middle name, Bright, founder and CEO of Omega-3, brain-centric food company. We just won Pinch Dingman. So my question... Thank you. So my question for you is kind of twofold. Do you find yourself missing the early days of Under Armour? Because I know as you get bigger and bigger, it gets a little bit more abstract and more in the minutia of the numbers, earning calls, and whatnot. And also, how did you attract talent in the early days? I find that those first few people that are on your team are very pivotal. And also, it's kind of hard to promise a salary or any type of compensation, and you want that person to be passionate about it. So how did you find talent, and do you miss those early days?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hang on, hold on that mic for a second. You just won the Dingman pitch, 30 seconds, Brain Food Company. What does that mean? Tell everybody in here, what's your business? You're on. This is your elevator pitch. This is your shot. Go.
So Omega-3 is the first of its kind brain-centric food company that works to proactively sustain brain health. We have key nutrients that we add to our products. Our premier product is the Omega-3 granola bar. It can be found in Whole Foods and other stores, and it works to sustain your brain health naturally. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sold. I'm setting up meetings with you and Our Lady in Green. We got them. We'll be ready for you. The good old days. The good old days. The good old days. There's no such thing. Like, let's be clear. When people say that, oh, I wish this place was more like it used to be. It was like, wait a second. We were starting the company. We were skipping paychecks. Like, nobody made any money. You know, we're wearing like tank tops and jean shorts into work. Like, this is it's easy to be romanticized about what the past was. And I could tell you, and I could go down a litany of like, it's difficult between legal, HR. It's just being a public company especially is really difficult. But I'd probably rather just anchor to one lesson I think is really important, especially as at Under Armour, we've recently come out of restructuring. Again, we had this tremendous growth trajectory all the way up until the end of 2016, beginning of 17. And then we went from 20 plus consistent growth, you know, down to like 12%, down to 5%. And then we're growing, but we're not growing the way that we were before. We had to go through restructuring, about $1 billion restructuring, and go through rifts and all these painful things. And then we've just announced that we're heading into a pivot, that we're truly pivoting to growth. And we've done some things with leadership there and how we're thinking about the next chapter for us. And what I want to make sure that our company knows, and we have something called Armour Day on Tuesday, and I'm going to have the chance to talk to all 18,000 global Under Armour teammates at once. And when we talk to them, I want to make sure that people know that there's no desire of getting back to the old days. Or man, if we could get back to that 2014 or 15 form when, you know, that's when things were really flying, is that we all have to recognize that that person that we said, boy, that's when I was in really good shape, or that's when I really was smart, or that's when I liked myself more, I was happier, I felt healthier. That person is gone. That organization is gone. And so sitting around, you know, waxing poetically about the romantic memories we have of being back in the day, and I just loved sitting in grandma's basement and, boy, taking those phone orders and, you know, and acting like I actually had a computer system. We were just writing things down on 3-carbon copy and making noise on a typewriter and saying, I'm sorry, our computer system seems to be down. Let me find your order. And meanwhile, I'm like, you know, like it doesn't matter whether I loved it or didn't like it. It ain't there. So all I can do is think about living right now. And I believe that intention and being present is the most important advice I could give anybody. And that's the person that's not staring at your damn phone the whole time. It's not looking over somebody's shoulder at a cocktail party, but wherever you are, be there. You know, and that's great advice for a parent. It's great advice for a boss, because it's not sitting there and I've got 6 things going on, I'm so busy, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds of 40% of my energy or time. Be present with it. And build that person, build that organization that you always wanted to be. Manifest that for ourselves. And that, I think, is a very, 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 very powerful opportunity that we have. Thank you. Under Armour, brain food, granola. Omega-3.
So I'm sorry, everyone, but we've come to the end of this session. You just had an opportunity to spend about an hour with one of the most creative, visionary, and innovative Terps that have ever graduated from this institution, who's created a worldwide brand that all of you know about. How many people do you know that you could say something and it derives right back to University of Maryland and to Kevin Plank? You can say that about Under Armour, because everybody knows where it came from. And even in the state of Maryland, they know where it comes from. It comes from Baltimore, because he's committed to the state of Maryland, he's committed to the city of Baltimore. So you just had an opportunity to hear some great advice. How about a round of applause for Mr. Kevin Plank? Hold on for 1 second, we're not done, please, please. I have a special gift for you. If my assistant will please bring it to me. Oh, thank you. So, as you know, we love sports at the University of Maryland, and we know you love sports. And as you all know, this year, our men's lacrosse team went 18-0 and won the national championship just a few weeks ago. That's right. It's an incredible run. Just as you know, last year they went undefeated as well, but lost in the very last game, national championship game, by 1 point. They came back this year more determined than ever, and they will go down as historically one of the most amazing teams in history, breaking every record in men's lacrosse. So they gave me this permission to offer you a photograph, and most importantly, a piece of the netting from the actual netting for the goals. And I do this on behalf of Coach Tillman and the entire men's lacrosse team and the entire athletic program to offer this to you. Thank you, my pleasure.
So I told you the rose story about how we used to bake roses here on campus, but we've got this new line that we just, it's not a line, but it's a hoodie that we made, which is an Under Armour. This is our incredible micro fleece that we've built out of this thing, but it's got this whole smell the roses, and then we've got a little 888, so we have my 301-927-6091 was the flyers I'd paint around campus that had our rose on it. So maybe on a good Sunday afternoon or something else you need around, but you can rock a little Under Armour with our little rose,
nice.
A little Maryland story tied in too.
I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're a lot of fun. And yes, you should all know to smell the roses. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much. Really an honor and privilege to be back here with you too. So super proud to be a Terp, and we have a great university and we have a great president too. So President Pines, thank you very much. Thanks for all of our leadership here. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's nice. And that's the actual netting. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you. We guys, thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right, so just before we get on to our lunch program, let's have another round of applause for President Pines and Kevin Plank. So as President Pines says, the strength of a university can be measured by the success of its alumni, and your engagement contributes to that success of the Terp network. So I encourage you to stay involved, stay active, and be a proud member of our community. I encourage you to stay in contact with the Alumni Association. We have a dynamic range of programming. One of these really programs we're proud of is our new Terp Business Directory. If you're looking to promote your business, products, or services to new potential customers and clients, please sign up to join our Alumni Business Directory. We have tables outside in the hallway where you can sign up. As well, we do have a few University of Maryland faculty here who are looking for business partners. Can I have our faculty raise their hands real quick? There we go. And if you are looking to join them as they take inventions they developed here in the lab to market, please connect with them sometime during the lunch. With that, no further ado, please join us in Reaver Hall for lunch. Thanks very much, and go Terps.